All right, Isaiah chapter 3, verses 6 and 7. When a man takes hold of his brother in the house of his father, saying, "You have clothing, you be our ruler, and let these ruins be under your power." In that day he will protest, saying, "I cannot cure your ills, for my house is neither food nor clothing. Do not make me a ruler of the people." Okay. All this stuff Isaiah's doing, Israel's kind of got themselves in a bind here, and they don't have anybody worthy or anybody that would desire to be a ruler. And so they're trying to pin this on everybody. They are, it's a scenario where, due to the extreme social breakdown that's caused by the lack of righteousness and the lack of leadership, people were desperately trying to convince even the least qualified among them, to be their ruler. They were looking for somebody, and y'all know a ruler isn't somebody necessarily they want to put in charge. It's somebody they want to put in blame is what they're looking for here, I think. And so this person had no desire to lead, but they still wanted to do it. And so they were in a dire state trying to find somebody, to help and to lead out when all of this correction was going on, in this time for Israel, okay? Verse number 8. For Jerusalem stumbled and Judah is fallen, because their tongue and their doings are against the Lord, to provoke the eyes of his glory. Jerusalem, it says in there, Jerusalem ruined, Judea fallen, says the prophet. In other words, they don't have any men of their day standing up and taking point, nobody holding point for the nation. And it says because their tongues and their doings are against the Lord. It was all provoking the Lord, and it's judgment and ruin against Israel, as well as any other nation that does God that way. God judges nations by their relationship with him. These people quit praying. They quit serving the Lord. They quit doing the things the Lord had asked him and practicing the things that he told them to practice, Church, how am I, this thing about being away from God, and I'm just going to tell y'all, I'm praying, y'all, and I'm praying really, really hard that this new thing that's just, come into our government with Trump being in there and all the things that he's setting forward. I'm praying that America wakes up. I'm praying that America sees some things, and I'm praying that a lot of people just get back to God for nothing else, that there's a mention of God again, in these things. And so I think we need to be praying, because if we're not praying about it, then we're not moving toward God. It's plain and simple. You're either moving toward God or you're moving away from God. You're not just sitting there idle. That's not the thing. We're either for him or against him. And so I'm praying that for him to help restore the USA, and I pray that we all wake up and that we all see the glory coming out of this, And I think this is really, that's the same thing that Isaiah was praying for Israel at that time. Y'all got to just pull your heads from where they are and see the way things are going, and go to living right again. And that's where we need to be in our country, okay? Verse number 9. The look on their countenance witness against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. They do not hide it. Woe to their soul, for they have brought evil upon themselves. This is another big problem that we have in our country today, y'all, is open, outright, public sin. There used to be things that people did in the dark. There used to be things that people did in the closet. There used to be lives people had in their backyard that nobody could see them having out in their front yard. And now, from undercover, it's all just out in the open, okay? And now that it's out in the open, and people are saying, well, we're honest about everything now, so it's okay. It's not, it's not. they're not more honest about things. They're just they're more hypocritical about these things when they're doing it, they're hiding sin and sinning in the open and saying it's good. And, that's exactly what Israel doing. Like it says right there, it says they declare their sin as Sodom, They're just living it like it's a normal thing and that it's okay. And, since we're doing this out in the open, we don't feel guilty about it anymore. Well, you may not feel guilty about it, but wrong is wrong and right is right still. And that's the way it still is today, and people need to see that. Verse number 10. Say to the righteous that it shall be well with them, for they shall eat the fruit of their doing. Well, God's promise, that He's going to deliver His people in one way or the other. Like it says, they eat the fruit of their doings. My daddy's saying used to be, if you're going to dance to the music, you got to pay the fiddler. He used to tell me that on Saturday and Sunday mornings when he'd wake me up early to do stuff after I'd been out all night. If you're going to dance to the music, you got to pay the fiddler, and that's the same thing here. We're either going to live by God or we're going to pay for what we do. And that's what he's trying to get across to Jerusalem, okay? Verse number 11. It says, woe to the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hands shall be given him. Saying the same thing one more time. Just saying what a man sows, also he's going to reap. Those two verses, one of them right back to back, and they exactly say the same thing. And God does that in His Bible, because if He tells you two things like that in the Bible, you need to listen to Him. And He says it more than once. And when He says it 3 times, you need to change your mind and change your ways, because He's dead serious about this stuff, okay? Verse number 12. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, those who lead you cause you to err and destroy the ways of your past. Okay, children as oppressors, what does that mean? Well, it's a younger generation not doing what they're supposed to be doing because the older generation didn't teach them no better, okay? And the younger that are getting in trouble and doing these things, they're learning from the other ones that are a little bit older, and it seems to at times to be, you watch and you see on the news, it seems that when you've got things with kids, the kids that are in trouble seem to be getting younger and younger and younger, because that's just the way it's doing. And it's more prolific than it used to be. And the thing that used to be, they used to call it women's lib, and like it was this really bad thing about stuff, and some of it was, because it's the same as this leftist women's regime that's going on now. And it's not just women, but it's men who are leading extreme liberalism, and it's going the wrong way, and it's moving things away from God. And it's a decadent, to God's plan, and this such liberalism, is going to make nations crumble and make nations implode, because it's just like a lot of the stuff that we've just seen. It's just right there in front of us right now, that when you've got this leftist decaying management, it causes everything underneath there to start to decay and to implode. And that's kind of where we're at. And, it's time to rebuild some stuff, And Isaiah, he's pleading with these people. He wants them to see this. He doesn't want destruction to come to these people. He wants them to get this stuff right and get back on track where they need to be. Verses 13 and 14. The Lord stands up to plead and stands to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the elders of His people and His princes, for you have eaten up the vineyard, the plunder of the poor is in your houses. He talks about the ancients and the princes there, and they're leaders of the nation, and God puts blame on the adult leadership of a nation. He talked about the young and the women issues, but it didn't begin with them. It began with the other people letting all this stuff start. people seeking fame, people seeking fortunes and riches and the gems, and they allow this godlessness to come into their lives. They allow a godlessness to come into their home because God is no more number one and he's no more important in their life. Simply enough, they've just moved away from God for the pleasures of the world. And God stands up right. In other words, it's like he's not just going to sit down there and take it. He's going to stand up. You know good and well if you're in a crowd of people and people are all there and somebody, I don't care who it is, anybody stands up, they're supposed to be noticed. If you're somewhere and somebody stands up and you're in a meeting and somebody stands up, pretty much bet that they're going to be the next speaker and that they got the floor for these things, and that's what he's doing. He's standing up because he wants people to take notice of him, to get their things right, and he's ready to judge. He hadn't judged yet, but he's ready, and he's letting them know, I think, that this judgment is all going to depend on these actions and the way that they're living their lives, and if they don't straighten it out, that this judgment's going to be swift, and it ain't going to be pretty for them, okay? And so he's trying to let them know. And when, he sends Isaiah there to tell them all this stuff, and it says he's going to stand up so that they'll take notice. It ain't like God's not giving you chances. It's not like he's given us and he's given America chances. And I'm praying that America takes this chance and, some things happen. So that's what he was doing with Israel. I'm reading all this and I'm thinking back to, to Monday and the way things were and things that have been said and things that are doing. And I'm telling you, it's really strange because this written so long ago. There's a lot of equals in this stuff that's running right along with exactly the things that are going on today. And it's kind of scary, and it really wants to make you to take all this stuff serious and know that your opinion and the way that you live your life in front of your kids, in front of your children, in front of your coworkers and things, it matters. It dang sure does matter. And so we just need to have that on our mind to live the way God would have us live. Verse number 15. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor, says the Lord God of hosts? Why he's talking about why demean and crush my people? Is that it's not by me and that's not my desire. And what he's talking about is the belittlement of the people. These people that were in charge, these people that were ruling, they weren't ruling to uplift these people. They were ruling to demean these people, And that's the way people have always got ahead. How was the greatest way that in America, that you look through all the times in America, the greatest way that most of these people got ahead is by stepping on the heads of other people, okay? By demeaning other people, they got ahead. You see that, Lord, y'all remember seeing that stuff on the playground when you was in school. If you've ever been in any, clubs and associations, you've seen all that stuff happen there. You see it happen on a job, all of these things. Somebody gets ahead because they're suppressing somebody else. And that's what he's talking about here. He's wanting to know, why are you demeaning my people? And they're demeaning them so they think they can get a leg up on them. And God said that ain't the way he wants things done. Verse number 16. Moreover, the Lord says, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with outstretched necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, making a jingling with their feet. Okay? Prideful, haughty women, more worried about their dress, than their hearts and their outward physical, things. It's just like what he's talking, jingling in that part of the world, them little bells, they wear all these little bells and, so they put that on to be more noticed. It's supposed to be more glamorous and more hoity-toity, I guess would be the kind of word for it. And that's what he's talking about. He said, why are y'all worried about all this outward stuff? Y'all are worried about the way you look, Somebody needs to be worried about their heart. He talks about this, they walk around with outstretched necks. It makes you want to think of a herd of ostrich, They're just, they're walking around there, and that outstretched neck, what do? You outstretch it. You're trying to hold your head a little higher. You're trying to be somebody that you're not, because you're just trying to impress people, with who you are, what you got, and the way you dress, and that your bells on your feet sound better than the bells on somebody else's feet. And that's all it is. It's a fashion show. That's exactly what he's talking about. There's a fashion show going on. And Isaiah saying, what about your heart? What about your heart? You guys are drifting away, What about your heart? Verse 17. Therefore the Lord will strike with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will uncover their secret parts. What's he talking about? He's talking about diseases and sicknesses. I mean, he said he's going to strike with a scab. That means he's going to cut, scratch, or scrape somebody. There's going to be something that goes on there, And I read some stuff on some of these diseases, and some of them aren't not, and some of them are just, they're of the social order. Let's just put it like that. That is one of the things that they said that he was talking about, that if something doesn't happen, he's going to bring some of these diseases out there, And he says, and the things, basically what he's saying is these things that look so good, this that looks so wonderful and tasty, it's going to bite like poison, And so y'all need to be careful, and you need to get your heart right on where you need to be. And that kind of goes in. Look at 18 through 24. We're gonna do this little group here. In that day, the Lord will take away the finery, the jingling anklets, the scarves, and the crescents, the pendants, the bracelets, and the veils, the headdresses, the leg ornaments, and the headbands, the perfume boxes, the charms, and the rings and the nose jewels, the festal apparel and the mantles, the outer garments and the purses, and the mirrors and the fine linen, the turbans and the robes. And so it shall be, instead of a sweet smell, there will be a stench. Instead of a sash, a rope. Instead of a well-set hair, baldness. Instead of a rich robe, a girding of sackcloth, and branding instead of beauty. What's he going to brand them? It's going to brand them bad, disobedient. And women dress, I don't know if y'all would think about it, but again, it makes me think back to Monday. I'm just going to tell you, I sat in my chair most all day Monday and watched every bit of that stuff, okay? I'm not a real politico kind of person, but I was really interested in what was all going on and what would be said there. And women's dress is and has been a barometer of any civilization as far as you could look back. And I think about that, and I'm thinking that, Monday, all of those ladies that are really going to represent us, the first lady, the second lady, all of their children and everybody, they were dressed in really nice fashion, Nothing over the top, nothing outlandish, anything. It was just very beautiful, and they were all just very stylish, and they wore all that stuff. And I was thinking about that as I was looking and studying about this. See, when women's dress is modest, it tells the barometer and the direction of way that the nation should go. And I looked at that, and I was thinking about that as I'm studying, and again today when I was going over this stuff, and I was thinking, man, if that's the case, then we're going to be in pretty good shape, because, those ladies, they outdid themselves in the way they were dressed, and none of them were trying to outdo movie stars on the red carpet with all their outlandish stuff, None of them had their business hanging out, and all that stuff. They weren't wearing dresses that were slid all the way to their underarm and and stuff like this. They, it was stylish, and it looked good. And so I'm thinking that that's exactly what he's talking about here. Very sensible and very stylish. If you notice in this, what he read, there's 20 articles of women's wear that are mentioned in this. 20 articles that those women wore back then when they were trying to get all dialed up. Maybe stylish, but he wants us to be in a modest way. And it's not only they're not only condemning his attire here, but more so, he's condemning the heart and the desire behind it, because the haughtiness and the brazenness, this adornment that they had was all adornment to just say simply this: look at me. It wasn't about look at my heart. It wasn't about where I take a stand. It was about just look at me. Come and see how beautiful I am. Come and see how desirable, that I would be for you. That's what these women, that's all that they were dressing for back then, and all of this stuff. And real adornment, the real adornment that is there is always that beauty beneath the skin, And that's the thing that God's interested in. That's what he's interested in for us to put out and for us to produce. What is your heart? What does your heart say? Where's your compassion for people, And instead of worrying about people looking at you, why don't you worry about looking at other people to see where you might serve them? Because that's the heart of God, and that's what he's wanting. So, that women's dress, whether, you kind of realize or not, it's pretty much an open read, to a nation's morals when you see how that, I'm not going to say that upper epsilon, though it may be, but the way that leadership, the way they handle themselves, okay? And they didn't really like the way it was going on, because of that whole list he just like pretty much, he said, I mean, you look at it right there, and it says it right there. He said, instead of a sash or rope, instead of a well-set hair, baldness, instead of a rich robe, you're going to have on a piece of burlap. So he said, I'm fixing to make y'all humble. That's what I'm fixing to do, all right? And put y'all off in captivity somewhere. Verses 25 and 26 is where we'll end up. Your men shall fall by the sword, and your mighty in the war. Her gates shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit on the ground. So, there's a Roman medal, and that Roman medal shows a woman who's weeping, and beneath her reads Judea Capta, and it represents the captures of Israel, because Israel did not heed the warnings of God that God gave them, and they went into captivity. And mostly, like even for us, we're not in captivity, and that's exactly where Israel was headed, in the midst of all this stuff. They were definitely headed for captivity because they weren't listening. And mostly today, here in our nation, we're a nation at peace, We're comfortable, and we're pretty content about some of those things, but the question for us is how long? Because even though we're at peace, we ain't right. And y'all know we ain't right as a country, because we ain't right as individuals. There's a whole lot more of us that we could be doing, and a whole lot more that we can be giving. And the thing that we really got to realize as we look at ourselves and is that, God is coming. That's not a fairy tale. He's going to show back up here one day, and when he does, it's going to be that day that everybody talks, oh, I'm just looking forward to that day. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. Yeah, you're going to look forward to it until it's your turn to kneel down. And then you got to come clean. And, and I'm just praying it ain't tomorrow, because I don't think I'm ready. I'm going to be straight with you, And I think these are things that in the days, in the times that we're living in, I think we need to consider some of these things, and look at the things that God had done, and look at the grace that he has given, and we need to get our business right and get in on some of that grace. Amen. Okay, that's where we're going to finish up tonight. I think that ends chapter 3, and so we'll get ready next week. We'll start chapter 4, and so everybody that's live streaming, we appreciate y'all being here with us. We can do something for you. Y'all give us a holler. Come and see us on Wednesday nights. Come eat supper with us. Come to the prayer meeting and the Bible study, and just stay and visit with us. Come with us on church on Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings at 10:30. We're going to be here, and we're going to praise and worship the Lord when we're here. We got a revival starting. We got a revival that starts on the 16th on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday through the 19th. We're going to have a revival here at the church. Brother Herman Kramer and Miles Pike will be doing the music. So